We see a lot of stuff out on the internet that is, pretty design, but it's not considering the specificity of the energy code or the climate demands where a homeowner might want to build.
Welcome to the Passive House Podcast, brought to you by Passive House Accelerator, a catalyst for zero carbon building. For news, inspiration, and connections from all flavours of Passive House, check out passivehouseaccelerator.com. Sign up to receive regular updates about events, get your questions answered, and contribute to the community dialogue. There's loads of free information for experienced professionals and people just starting out on their Passive House journey. We hope to see you at one of our weekly Passive House Accelerator live webinars. In the meantime, here's this week's Passive House Podcast. Welcome back to the Passive House Podcast. I'm Matthew Cutler, coming to you from Auckland, New Zealand, and I'm joined this week by Jay Fox. How you doing, Jay?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for having me back.
Well, thanks for bringing us another great interview, which we'll dive into shortly. And also joined by Zach Semke. How you going, Zach?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. It's a bit of wet and wild weather this weekend. So we're having some warm winter. Sorry, it's winter where you guys are. It's a warm summer storms here, which is very humid. It's kind of odd at the moment. It's a little bit bizarre. But yeah, it's going pretty good. But I'm really keen to jump into this week's interview because we're kind of talking mass customization and prefabrication with one familiar voice to the podcast and the accelerator, and another great voice that you had a chat with, Jay. So we'll get into that. But before we do, we've got a few people to thank, Zach.
Yeah, we sure do. A big thank you to a brand new sponsor of Passive House Accelerator, Reservoir Home. Reservoir Home is our sponsor of the week. So they're making all of our work possible here at Passive House Accelerator, including at the Passive House Podcast. And a big thank you to our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. Thanks to our founding sponsors as well, 475 High Performance Building Supply, Ingui Architecture, Partel, Rockwell North America, and Zola Windows. And thank you to our champion sponsors, Bewizo, Cascadia Windows and Doors, European Architectural Supply, Icon Windows and Doors, Intelligent Membranes, LG Air Conditioning Technologies, Proseco, and Source 2050.
Well, looks like we first had Edie Dillman on the show back on episode 125, and talking prefab then as the co-founder and CEO of B.Public Prefab, which and has also been quite a common voice. We've had her back on the show, including a couple of bonus episodes, and we've caught up with her during various conferences over the years. So great to have her back on with a bit of an update of where things are at and what she's up to, along with Karen Ramsey, who is she's pretty busy as well, and also got her own consultancy, Building Wellness. And yeah, together a great team and really interesting look at kind of prefab and mass customization, as I mentioned, which we have talked about, and I hope we continue to talk about. So let's dive in, Jay, with your conversation with Edie and Karen.
Hello, and welcome back to the Passive House Podcast. My name is Jay Fox. I'm a co-host here, and I'm joined today by Karen Ramsey, founder and sustainability strategist at Building Wellness, and Edie Dillman, one of the founders and CEO at B.Public. Thank you both for being here.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I guess just to start off, could you two just explain kind of your background for those who aren't familiar with your company and what you do there?
Yeah, I'd love to share. So B.Public Prefab launched in 2019 with a prefab panelized solution to meet Passive House standard. We've been working across the country from California to Maine, providing design services and prefab fully insulated structural panels to create the shell of new homes. We are focused on residential work, although we've done some fun other commercial things. But we're really focused on solving the housing crisis while being environmentally appropriate and sustainable, and also sort of speed up the adoption of better building systems and building science, of course, and get as many great projects up and built as we can across the country.
Karen, what's your background and what's up with building wellness?
Sure. So my background was in construction, commercial construction for a long time, focused on pre-construction services and project management. And then more recently, in the last 10 years, I've moved into high-end residential and focusing on building sustainable custom homes in Colorado. So I decided to start building wellness in 2024 when I realized that there was a big need for consultants supporting those builders and architects in achieving the high performance, specifically passive house standard. So I'm a certified passive house tradesperson, and I'll be going after my CPHC, certified passive house consultant, this year.
Cool.
And work with my clients in a number of different ways, but I do passive house consulting, energy modeling, with some cost consulting thrown in so that we really make sure that that budget is aligned from the very beginning. And then I support clients in interviewing builders, finding the right team, and overseeing construction during the process.
Cool. And are you just sticking with Colorado? Like, I know there's been a lot of wildfires out there and some communities that have not fared so well. Are you seeing a lot of like passive house, I don't know, folks who are interested in building to passive house standards as they're rebuilding? Or is that still
Yes,
out?
I have. So specifically in the Marshall Fire rebuild, which was a few years ago, we had a big increase in conversations around how to build better. The municipalities really got involved in how we could support them to build better. And quite a few homeowners were able to get on board and actually achieve certification.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then I think in general, Colorado lends itself to folks that naturally care about the environment and want to do better for the environment. So passive house certainly is a great opportunity for people to do that too.
Nice. And do you operate at all outside of Colorado? Like, I don't know, cross over the border to like Wyoming, or like, I don't know, go into Nebraska, or are you just like, there's enough work in Colorado that you don't need to go out searching for other states or in other states?
So I have connections all over the US, but I'm focused right now Colorado, sorry. I have a few projects in LA, the fire rebuild there, that I'm doing passive house certification for. I work with an energy consultant in Vancouver, British Columbia, which is a great connection to have just because it's so inspiring to see the work that they're doing up there. And that's about it for right now.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Edie, I want to ask about prefab panels since I've got you here, and you always seem to have your finger on the pulse. So is there, are you seeing a lot of growth in prefab right now and panels, and are there any particular hotspots, whether in Colorado or outside of Colorado? Yeah.
It's really exciting in Colorado what's happening. Fort Collins is a incredibly forward-thinking town, and they've mandated 2030 and net zero ready for new construction. But as a state, they're very encouraging of what we do and others sort of in the offsite world, and what that means for our industry in terms of kind of tooling up for technology and modern methods of construction being implemented. So the state has a grant program to support expansion and the establishment of new offsite companies. And that goes from people like us who are doing a closed wall wood natural assembly to people who are doing full mods for commercial development. And so, Colorado's got some pretty active programs to encourage this type of building. They're also, have instituted inspections and sort of compliance paths specific to offsite. And that seems to be a growing trend. Like, we're based in New Mexico, so bordering Colorado, and we too are a registered modular manufacturer in the state. All of our inspections are, the state inspectors come to our facility and inspect all of the sheathing, nailing, and framing and insulation in our facility. So my feeling is, of course, we can have great policy that's encouraging of better building and for offsite. It's a whole other thing when we see the system for the management of that and the growth of that being implemented in states. So there's a really kind of juicy moment that we're seeing that we're having to find solutions and pathways for each of these states, each of these municipalities, but it's a huge signal that they're actually implementing programs for the certification and inspection. Of course, that's sort of on the business side of things. The number of homeowners, builders, and developers that are coming to us and coming to other folks in panelization, I think is rapidly increasing. So we've got a lot of signals that we've been building up to this moment. 2026 definitely feels different in our industry, and a lot of people are putting energy and focus towards the work that we do and those in the industry who are doing it alongside us.
That is fantastic to hear. And then you mentioned Fort Collins, and that's really, I think, kind of the focus of our conversation today is going to be about this Designed to 2030 program. And I guess could you just give the listeners kind of some background about, or I guess more background about Fort Collins and the program, even like kind of where, I don't know, if Fort Collins is like completely ahead of the curve, or if they're kind of, how should I say this? If they're like light years ahead of everybody else, or like this is kind of like everybody in Colorado's right behind them, and probably we're going to start seeing a lot more programs like this pop up.
Yeah, I would say they're light years ahead of people, but I'll let Karen, because she is the lead consultant on the project that we're here to talk about. I think they're unique in some ways that they're a smaller town. We've seen large cities make commitments to 2030 and implement pre-approved plans in different ways. But I think Fort Collins is definitely a leader in the West around this. Karen, you want to jump in and talk about the program and kind of where it came from?
Sure. So, yeah, I would totally agree that the city of Fort Collins is a leader in our state and maybe even the Rocky Mountain region in getting the pre-approved high performance plan sets available to the community. So the program itself is really focusing on providing our community with pre-approved, permit-ready, high-performance plan sets that are affordable and attainable, really allowing people to, first-time home buyers, the opportunity to buy a home that's affordable and will meet the 2030 energy codes that we are planning to meet with the City of Fort Collins initiative. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we're trying to do. Some other opportunities this allows us is to offer some builder training in order to get our local builders and any production builders that want to build here in Fort Collins up and running, experienced in building panelized homes. One of the goals of the pilot program is for all the plans to have a panelized design with them so that they have that option to build panelized. And in addition to having like panelized training, we would also look at training for other passive house techniques like air sealing, RV installation, things like that. So really making sure that the program is successful because our builders are successful in doing it and supporting it.
Yeah. And I mean, again, Colorado has seen quite a bit of passive house construction and just a lot of high performance building. Like, I don't know, does that trickle down to kind of general knowledge among contractors and tradesfolk? Like, are they maybe not like passive house certified, but at least familiar with some of these techniques?
In my experience locally here, I'd say 25 to 30% of the builders are familiar with passive house and might even be building that way. The majority probably are not, and we do have a large number of production homes still being built in our area. A lot of those people come from out of state and can't meet our current building codes, so that's really been one of the challenges we've had in Fort Collins.
Okay.
I was going to shout out to some of the education and community building that has happened in Colorado, specifically I think around the Marshall Fire and the incentives that Xcel Energy offered for people building back to passive house allowed for a lot of incentive to learn about building better. And then I think organizations like the Colorado Green Building Guild did a lot of community outreach and public events with a lot of free workshops and trainings and tours that I think also, this has been a huge effort in Colorado to offer widely and sort of generously information about options. I think very much in line with the Passive House Accelerator's ethos of just sharing the good, the bad, and the technique. Has definitely been on the ground in Colorado. And I know that Colorado Green Building Guild has been sort of based out of Boulder, but now has a separate chapter in Fort Collins because there's such a hub there in Fort Collins as well. So it is spreading and it is supported in a really unique way that I'm not seeing as much in other areas of the Southwest.
Yeah, and as someone who seen a city needing to be rebuilt here in Asheville, I feel like it's not really trickling down over here from the Northeast. Like Boston and New York still remain like the kind of the central players over here on the East Coast. Anyway, I could go on about that for a while and complain, but I'm not going
to. We will see you in North Carolina in May because we will be there for the High Performance Home Tour, which I think is a really banner annual event, and we're really excited to have a project in Chapel Hill on that tour. So there are pockets, but I would agree it doesn't feel as sort of ever present as it does in other areas. We're getting to you, Jay. We're trying to be in North Carolina too.
I will love it. And I'm actually, one of my favorite articles that we got to publish last year was by, what's her name? Sophie Martin, I think was a lead writer from Stantec. They're doing a college. They're doing a student residence down in North Carolina. That's really, really cool. Yeah. Cool. Well, let's pivot away from that and focus back on your team and what you're doing here. So I'm curious how you two got together, and I know Steve Winter is involved as well. Like, how did the team kind of coalesce and decide to do this?
Yeah, so I have had the privilege of working with Edie and her team on several projects in the past. So I felt like it was a no-brainer to bring them on when I was putting this proposal together last year. And also connected with some folks at Stephen Winter Associates through some whole building life cycle courses that I took in the past, and knew that their experience is invaluable as well. So I was lucky enough to get them to join our team. And to round it out, we brought in Holly Mumford with Here About Home. And also I've had the privilege of working with Holly. She's phenomenal. She's based in Brooklyn, New York, and her business model is selling and customizing pre-designed plan sets. And her plans really lend themselves to passive house already. They're just clean, modern designs. So the passive house technique works well with her designs, as well as, I can't speak for Edie, but I think panelization works really well with her designs just from the start. So that's our team in a nutshell. And yeah, I was lucky enough to get everyone on board, and we submitted a great proposal last October, interviewed for the job with the city of Fort Collins, and was awarded in November. So.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, this is moving right along.
Yeah.
Well, can you describe some of the dimensions or performance metrics? Like, I know it's really, really early and everything's still preliminary, but like, have you hammered out any kind of specifics that you can talk about at this point?
I mean, I see it being passive house informed or passive house light, basically meeting all the standards required by our energy models to be certified without encouraging the homeowner to go through with the certification process.
Got it.
And I think, part of the contract that the team has with the city is to do community outreach and look for what those forms are that they need. What is the highest demand? Is it a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, a 3-bedroom? Is it an ADU, which we all know that the goal is to have some variety in floor plan sizes
Mhm.
but it has not been determined yet just how many plans will be offered in this first set, and we will be doing some, community work with what is in demand. What's nice about that is it's coming from the homeowners, but also developers, because Fort Collins, like much of Colorado, is a growing community, and they have hundreds of residential lots ready to be developed with these professional developers. So what are the forms that they require in this community? And so that we can, as a team, work on the designs of what is required for housing there. And I think the other part of it is Fort Collins has great style. It's sort of a beautiful older town that has a lot of new construction as well. So what is the aesthetic mix that the community is calling for, and what kind of options can these plans be produced in that you can have neighborhood style, you can have neighborhood development, and you can have a variety that works very well specifically in that community and to that community's climate. We see a lot of stuff out on the internet that is, pretty design, but it's not considering the specificity of the energy code or the climate demands where a homeowner might want to build. And what's really cool about this program, it's very specific to Fort Collins and probably even some of the microclimates there. So building out just not a pretty design, but doing the pre-modeling and looking at the system sizing for those designs. So all of that pre-construction work being done with support from the city and being offered to the community for use after all that good, hard professional work is done.
Cool. And I mean, forgive me if this is already kind of like known and I'm just forgetting, is it exclusively going to be single family, or can you do some like duplex, depending if like the community actually is okay with that?
I like how you think. You're already expanding the program. We love that about you, Jay.
I'd love to see at least one duplex option. I think I've had some conversations with developers just in the last several months. They're very excited about this program coming on board, and they're very willing to, select 3 or 4 models that they could present to their homeowners as options. And some of these communities have not only single family lots, but they have multifamily lots. So whether we can do duplex, triplex, eventually I'd love to get into some multifamily. I don't know if obviously this year that's not our focus, but at least seeing the opportunity to build duplex, I think that's a great way to get people into their first home.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I guess I've never been to Fort Collins, so I don't know what's the kind of, I'm assuming it's like, central downtown and then a lot of like dense single family kind of surrounding it, or is it totally different?
Pretty much. Yeah. So our population right now is around 170,000.
Oh.
We have a nice, very active downtown and a pretty large college campus in town. Colorado State University is here, and I think they have around 34,000 students now. But yeah, outside of the downtown area, there are a couple of pockets of, industrial and business areas, but it's mostly residential.
Okay. Got it. I'm picturing it as like a bigger Asheville.
Yes, very similar. Very similar.
It does have a river that runs through it. It's true.
Yes, the Poudre River, not the French Broad.
Yeah, and yeah, that in Asheville, it's basically that industrial section goes along the river, and then everything on either side is residential. And then I grew up outside of Detroit, and Detroit is very, very, very single family oriented, and like people will fight tooth and nail to not allow anything but single family, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
But again, that's a tangent that I probably shouldn't go down. So let's stay focused on this project. And Edie, this is I don't know much about this program, but I mean, are the plans going to follow B.Public's kind of wall systems that exist already, or are you going to be modifying them to work with this program and cut costs or any other reason?
I appreciate that question. I think the best way to think about that, Jay, is optimization. And that's something we talk a lot about at B.Public. I think it's something that gets dropped a lot in the passive house world. And it goes into, for us, from schematic design all the way through to building and then occupancy, is how can we just be smarter? How can we optimize for performance? But also what we concentrate on is the buildability, the simplicity of prefabrication, and then the simplicity for install on site. We often, count up panels when we're doing trainings. The average panel goes in 8 minutes when we're doing an install training. So how quickly, how we design and how the pieces go together is a part of optimization. I think we'll be working with the whole team, and certainly with Stephen Winters and Associates and with Karen in terms of modeling the requirement. We offer a variety of performance walls. So what is the correct mix from roof to wall assembly that is appropriate for Fort Collins? And so that really will be based on the modeling. We already have built in a lot of flexibility to hit those performance markers. And I think thinking about a holistic team and making it as easy and joyful for the homeowners or the developers and the builders to get this done. So I think we're always game to R&D better solutions. When we're looking at repeating of patterns of forms, we want it to be really smart. We really want to do all of that pre-engineering and design so that it is optimized for construction. So that's not a direct question other than we're really open to build what's required for this program. But I think we've got the tools and the products in place. It's just really fine-tuning the design so they're really logical and pleasing to build.
Cool.
Yeah, I would say we're ready and willing to think with the whole team, and it's what's really exciting about the team that Karen has put together. I mean, these are great minds in architecture and in passive house and in high performance. So we get to learn from them and we get to collaborate and see if we've got all the pieces to just roll out these designs.
Nice. And how much, I guess, customization, either because of unique aspects of a site, because I'm sure it's going to be fairly mountainous there, and you can't just make a cookie cutter one house for everything, but also people are going to want different windows or different sizes, different whatever. How much customization are you kind of leaving open for the owner or a developer?
I think it's a really good question, and I'll kick it to Karen as well. But I think we want people to be able to personalize. It's one of the nice things about how we approach panelization is all of those finishes inside and out are totally with the homeowner or the builder to choose. So in terms of look and feel, I think it's always important to think about additional site built elements like decks, porches, garages, things like that add so much character to a home. I think I would be remiss in saying we're of course thinking about fire hardening in everything that we're designing. Yeah. So we don't want to add a lot of, opportunities for smoke, embers, that kind of thing, but thinking about options that allow people to customize. I think the plan sets will be fixed. What the team has talked about being customized per lot, of course, is the foundation, and the site plan will have to be customized for permitting. So I think what are the things that we can build into the designs as sort of those on-site, site-built and aesthetic applications to make them more creative and more personalized. Karen, do you agree with that as sort of our goal?
Absolutely, 100%. I could see production builders taking these plans as a model to sell to their clients with the opportunity to customize minimally, just in order for them to meet and maintain the passive house standard. I do believe there are other architects in town who are more than able to make more customizations and keep it within the passive house standard and meeting those requirements. So I think it could be a variety, but I like having that opportunity for even production builders to be able to build better than what they're building today and learn something new and potentially, yeah, make some customizations if need be. It'd be nice to have some maybe exterior finish options on each design that they could choose from. So I think we could offer some customization up front even, which is something obviously we haven't really talked about as a team, but giving a variety of like exterior finishes that are fire resistant, different roof materials, just to change the look of the house, maybe different roof pitch, things like that. But yeah, I definitely agree. I think customizing is going to be necessary just because Fort Collins in general, I think a lot of people like to be unique and different and not necessarily want to live in a cookie cutter home. I also hope that over time, this pilot program really takes off and we're able to bring in some more plans to kind of round out the portfolio that might meet the affordable requirements or maybe have some higher end custom homes that are meeting this high performance standard.
Yeah, that would be very cool. But I guess with customization, and again, this is my ignorance with Edie, your how B.Public operates, so I apologize there. But like with, I mean, even something like different window manufacturers, do you think you're more than likely going to kind of pick like one manufacturer who's got multiple models, or do you think you're going to go to like a bunch of different manufacturers? Again, I'm just focusing on Windows, but I guess this could apply to a bunch of other stuff. But kind of those major systems, do you think you're going to work with just one company, or do you think you're going to branch out a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question because, of course, when we're thinking about a high performance envelope, the windows and doors are crucial. I think it will likely be more a performance metric that's required because these are going to be modeled for performance. And so I think it will be more of sort of a prescriptive to achieve this. The windows need to have this U value, you name it. And I think, you know, we work with many wonderful triple pane manufacturers, and we always try to have details for the install of different windows and doors available. That's something that the team can talk about, is just sort of having a whole portfolio of details to be applied to these depending on what manufacturer people choose. And then having on hand information, data, and support from many window manufacturers. I mean, Colorado's got Alpine Windows right there in Louisville. So we've got good partners locally, but it is one of those things we try and stay a little bit far away from, Jay, because people are very opinionated about windows and builders have real favorites. And we really want a program that makes builders super happy, gives them the flexibility and control that they want while getting to this 2030 metric. And so I would say it's going to be very open to who the possible suppliers could be, but I think there are going to be a lot of people who flock to support the program in both the education piece and providing quotes and providing, you know, even samples that are readily available there in Fort Collins so people can see them. I think that's part of it, is people, you know, if you can't see what that cladding looks like or what that wood frame is, it's very hard to commit. So we need to localize as much of that information as we can. I think Karen's office is going to get really overrun with samples now that I said that. I'm so sorry.
It already is. It's okay.
Good problem to have.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Well, I guess this is jumping a little bit, but it's a fairly simple question. But I'm just, is it required by Colorado or Fort Collins that you need to have solar ready, or are you just going to make these solar ready, or even have PV on all of them? I don't know. What's your plan with that?
I would see them all being solar ready.
Okay.
I don't think that PV is going to be a requirement, but it's quite likely a lot of people will want to add PV, but I don't know if we build it as well as we plan on building them, if it will even be necessary.
Oh, wow. Nice. Yeah, is it, again, this is my ignorance with Colorado, I just do, it's an annoying blank spot in my knowledge of what's going on in the passive house and high performance world. I would just think that Colorado is very sunny and that there's a lot of PV already there and like some, good government or, state-led kind of programs for it. Is that accurate, or am I kind of just making that up?
You're opening up my own blind spot, Karen. Is there a statewide I mean, it's an interesting state because there are great statewide policies, but it's also 52 different permitting municipalities,
Oh,
and they all have a little something extra or different.
That's very true.
But in terms of states that we're working in, basically everything is solar ready as sort of standard code right now. But Karen, what is it for the state of Colorado? Do you know?
Yeah, as far as I know, it is solar ready for most of our municipalities. What I've been building is solar ready or including PV and EV chargers as well as another standard practice to be either including the EV charger in construction or being ready to have that when they would like to add it.
Mm-hmm.
Another great option here, and I don't know if other parts of the country are this way or not, but we have solar farms. So there are, when you can't meet, for example, City of Boulder has some pretty steep HERS rating requirements. And if you can't meet your HERS rating, then you can buy into a solar farm to achieve that.
That's a good model. Yeah, that is not, I won't say it's completely uncommon, but it's not super common out east for that.
Yeah, I think it's fairly new here too. And I don't know a lot of folks in Fort Collins that are doing that or if that's available to us, but I have experienced that with clients in Boulder.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have this like image of Colorado as being like very pro-environmental. I know it's a bit of a purple state just because of, urban rural divide and like a hippie mountain town, but just in my head, there's a lot of hippie mountain towns and they hold a lot of sway on policy.
Yes, you are correct. All of our major cities are the blue dots on the state. And then we have a lot of wonderful rural communities too on the Eastern Plains and the Western Slope to kind of round it out. But yeah, it's a nice mix, and you need to come out and visit.
I really want to. I'm name dropping now, and maybe it will get me a beer. But my friend runs a sandwich shop called Cruisers in a Steamboat.
Nice. I'll have to go check it out next time I'm up there.
Apparently, they're great sandwiches. I've not made it. I haven't been in Colorado in probably 20 years.
Okay.
Well,
we have a B.Public project going right now, so up in Steamboat. So come check it out.
All right, well, I'll have to go, and I can visit Evan from Zola. I've been wanting to actually meet him in person at some point.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, and it's just going back to the whole purple thing, purple states. Like it's amazing how solar is like on a national picture. It's very divisive, but then when you see like places like Alabama, these kind of community solar projects get like huge support from the community. It's only once you go to the national level that it becomes contentious. Anyway, neither here nor there.
Yeah, we live in a bubble here, I will say.
Same here. In terms of specific benefits, like, do you have an idea of how much money and or time teams might save using these specific proof plans? And even if it's a round percentage number, like I don't think you're going to get down to the cent or anything, but just
Right.
an idea of how beneficial this will be to newer homeowners.
Sure. So part of our process will be doing a cost analysis on each of the designs to make sure that they are truly providing a cost savings to our homeowners. And I believe we're trying to get between 10 and 20% below average. So
it would be huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about this.
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was going to say we were talking when some of the group was together at the Colorado Housing Summit, Home Builder Summit a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about how to quantify. And it's really hard because, sometimes when you go to design a custom home, it goes, over 6 months to just get through the design process. And then you have the permitting wait. Fortunately, Fort Collins moves permitting pretty quickly. It's not like somewhere like Seattle where it can be a year or more, where you're stuck in permitting back and forth. So it really is that upfront, like all the consulting for the modeling, all of the design services, the system sizing. We talked about window detailing and window packages. I think it's all of that pre-con will be done and kind of pulled off the shelf. And then, the period of time would be the site-specific foundation and site design. And I think we could assume that's going to take less than a month. So being able to have a permit in a month and a half, 6 weeks, is pretty amazing for a high-performance home. So in terms of cost savings, it's thousands of dollars per home for sure.
That's phenomenal. And yeah, I know that it's easy to say it depends because all the finishes and customization, whatever else can happen, but like 10 to 20% and 6 weeks is enormous.
Exciting. It's exciting, isn't it? Yeah.
Cool. And I now, is there any indication that other cities in Colorado are kind of like noticing this happening and kind of wanting to get on board, or is this like still too new and we're gonna hopefully see adoption, but there's no indication yet that it's gonna see broader adoption?
I haven't heard of anyone specifically looking to adopt this yet, but I do spread the word quite far. I'm the president-elect for the Colorado Green Building Guild, so that organization kind of stretches out over most of the state, and everyone on our board is well aware of this project coming up, and they're very excited about it. So I think everyone just kind of wants to see what we're doing and how successful we are. And at the end of the pilot program, once we launch everything and give it some time to take off, we'll be providing a case study so that we can share the good word with everyone about how to do this. So I certainly hope that more municipalities buy in to this program.
Yeah, I would hope so. And speaking of kind of timelines, what is the anticipated timeline for, coming up with the plans and actually launching this?
It'll happen during 2026. So we have a contract for a year to get the pilot program up and running. I don't know that it will take us that full amount of time, but like I think I mentioned to you before our call that we have our kickoff meeting next week. So getting started in February and hopefully wrapping up by the end of this year.
And again, just let's say most optimistic. When do you think the first of these houses will actually like get underway and be built?
I would hope to see by next spring that people are pulling permits and construction beginning next summer. That would make me very happy.
Me too. I really like this idea. And I know we're getting close to the kind of top of the hour here, and so this might kind of be the last question, but I'm curious if you think a program like this could work, at the federal level, or if it would have to be, kind of more, I don't want to say like a patchwork, but like if it needs to be necessarily more of a smaller jurisdiction doing it, just because there's so many variables involved. Yeah. Do you think it could be federal, state, or does it have to be kind of a local jurisdiction?
I think it's such a good question. And I think, if we look at the homes, we've just talked about Asheville and Fort Collins and Detroit. These are all places that had Sears homes built 100 years ago, right? Like the Sears home program really was the pre-approved plan program. We've moved away from that in a lot of ways. And I think what's interesting is there's so many cities and states that are developing these programs for the same reason that Fort Collins is an ease for homeowners to get into a home and to sort of be able to choose what they build and make it easier and more affordable. And so I think we've seen a lot of this more in ADUs being pre-approved in towns, like Los Angeles has a program, Seattle has a program.
Yeah.
And so I think there will be more of this, it may be interesting to see things that go nationwide, but sort of climate specific. Of course, we would all vote for that. But I think there's a lot of energy around pre-approved or easing the construction process for everyone involved. And what I am really excited about is how many programs we've seen that are basically open calls to architects across the country to participate. Like the Passive House Network just had their design competition for the Altadena rebuild. And that was like an amazing example of it's not exclusive, right? It's everybody getting to participate in imagining what these pre-designed plans could be. And I don't see it slowing down at all. Let's just hope we were able to standardize it so it's not such a chaotic marketplace for people.
Cool. Karen, do you
Yeah,
add
sure. So I do see kind of the world we live in right now is in a transition, a bit of a transition. And I see that this is the transition happening in the construction industry. I think we are, over the last decade or so, we've been learning ways to build better, and now we're really putting it into practice and kind of encouraging our leadership locally to make it standard practice in our communities. So I think that's kind of what we're witnessing is this transition over time. And if we in 20 years look back and see how far we've come, I think it'll be a whole new landscape of how we build and design, and hopefully how we support people in buying their first home.
Wow. Well, that is a fantastic note to end on. Yeah, that makes me hopeful, which right now it's really nice to be hopeful about anything.
Yes. Yes,
We
are
got you,
hopeful.
Jay. We got good
Yeah.
news.
Yeah.
We got good news.
This is why I need this. I need to come back to you two more often and get, my spirits picked up.
Yes.
Anytime.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time and walking me through this new plan. And yeah, hopefully we'll be checking back in a couple months to see about progress, and maybe there will be an article in the future once the first home gets built.
Yeah, that would be exciting. I'd love to chat more about it.
And that was Edie Dillman and Karen Ramsey. Thank you very much, Jay. What were your highlights from that conversation?
I think the biggest highlight is the potential savings that the new homeowners are going to be able to get from these plans, which is between 10 and 20%. I think that's absolutely huge. I'm assuming Fort Collins is similar to other kind of up and coming cities like the one I'm in, where just costs have exceeded, let's say, local wages by a pretty wide margin. So 10 to 20% is actually going to make a huge difference for a lot of young homeowners. I think that's my main takeaway, and I'm really excited to see that they're going to potentially have permits getting issued by 2027, and maybe even have one of these built by the end of that year, which would be huge. Really hope that it goes well also, so that other people start copying it and it spreads, not like wildfire, because that's probably a sensitive subject in Fort Collins and the rest of Colorado,
Yeah.
but spreading like
Wildflowers. Spreading like wildflowers.
Flowers. Nice. Nice.
I like that. Let's do that. Yeah.
What about yourself, Zach? What did you take out of that?
Well, the same. And there's this promise and I think a trend and sense that we're actually getting there where prefab can drive costs down. There are a lot of benefits to prefab in terms of schedule and precision, and to also then be able to deliver these projects at lower than conventional build is transformative. We're seeing this actually start to play out at a larger scale as well. So the Bunker Hill Housing redevelopment project in Boston, for example, they're working on building 2 of the 15 buildings they're doing. They've completed building 1, And they're that, 10 to 20%, they're expecting the construction cost of the second building, which is a 9-story building, but it's using prefab panels. I'm in CLT and Passive House. They're expecting that building to come in at 20% less than a conventional building, high rise built from steel and concrete. So it is where it feels like it's becoming real. And I think there's a tension, of course, that the team will have to navigate there with the customization and, the piece and finding the right balance there. Because if, the customization is one of the things I understand that can kind of eat into those cost savings. But super, super cool. What an amazing team. And it's really great to see what's happening in Colorado as well. So I got to know Karen Ramsey through the Reimagine Buildings Collective because she's one of the early members, and she announced the first time I heard about the award, that this whole project is, she announced it on the feed a couple of weeks ago. And there are a lot of, like, we've been there. There's like this little nucleus, or what am I trying to say? Center of gravity, or critical mass is what I'm trying to say. Critical mass of Colorado-based practitioners in the collective, and I think that is a kind of manifestation of how healthy that community of practice is there. And the Colorado Green Building Guild has been such an important institution. So it's really cool to hear that Karen's the incoming president of that great organization. We know lots of people there. And so it's also just kind of inspiring to hear these really smart, talented, dedicated people making this happen.
Yeah. And looking back at the whole area of prefabrication, I think having that network is a key part of it. Just thinking about some of the barriers to that is it's all about a standardized process, and there's a lot that's currently a barrier to that, because we've created a system that is more around customized, bespoke, and almost craft building of, everything's different, everything's bespoke, and that's the system that we've created. I'm just going to read out something. I found this little quote here, which talks about using pre-cut lumber, standardized components, and detailed instructions to let middle-income households build detached homes quickly and relatively cheaply. That's describing Sears Homes, which was staggering in this interview, Jay, who were active between 1908 and 1942. So this does seem very much Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, exactly.
Yeah, I would say. And I'm a huge proponent of Sears Homes. I think, I forget if I mentioned this last time or if this was us just talking before the podcast, but growing up in the Detroit area, they were extremely common when I was younger. And they last for a very long time. I'm not advocating everybody go back to those Sears Homes. I'd like a little Passive House or high performance update, but I mean, it's a model that can clearly work, that can build a lot of single family housing really quickly. And yeah, I mean, there's minor customization that happens, so it's not like everybody has to live in the exact same home, but it's amazing how well it worked once, and it should probably work again.
Well, and we only have to look at places like Sweden, where 80 to 85% of homes are built in factories. And granted, there's a different climate there, and there are different conditions that make that more beneficial, but it is also a lot to do with policy and decisions in the whole supply chain and standard processes. And I one of the things that's jumped out at me about this conversation was the fact that they've got inspections happening inside the facility. And I think that's one of the key steps in getting this to be normalized, is bringing those inspections, the quality assurance, not just from the manufacturer, but also from whoever needs to do the signing off in that particular jurisdiction, to get them on board, so they're actually doing those inspections inside the factory rather than having to fit into that sort of more stick-built frame construction. And that's just one of those pieces of the puzzle, but it's clearly, on that journey back to, we've been there before. We do know how to do this. Other people know how to do it. Other industries know how to do this. We talk about all the time that, that the whole concept of manufacturing is so well refined in other commodities It's just for some reason we choose to build houses in a completely different way. So yeah, really, really cool stuff. And I think that I come back to this idea of mass customization as well. You talk about that these houses don't have to be the same, and there's just when you get a Lego set, there's just infinite numbers of combinations of putting together standardized building blocks to create something that can still be bespoke, but you don't have to be redesigning the blocks every single time. And I think that's the promise of modern prefabrication in this sort of format.
Yeah. And like even with, as Edie mentioned, they're not even limiting specific window manufacturers. So you can, as long as you hit certain requirements, you can use pretty much whatever windows you want. And systems, I'm sure, would be that way. And it's just you have the core component is this high performance building block that's kind of standardized. And yeah, I think it would, I don't know. I'm gonna start rambling about how much I like it.
Well, yeah, and it's great. This is a great update, Jay, and thanks for checking in with them again. Like, as I mentioned, you can go back and listen to some of Edie's previous interviews, and also been involved in Reimagine. So this will be one to watch. We'll keep an eye on what these guys are doing. Awesome stuff, and we'll keep an eye on this and others who are doing similar work around the country and around the world. So yeah, awesome stuff. We mentioned Reimagine there, Zach, which both Karen and Edie have been involved in a little bit. What have we got coming up and what's going on over there?
Oh yeah, so Reimagine Buildings Collective. So one way to think of the collective is for folks who, well, I guess listen to the podcast or also go to Passive House Accelerator Live. This is what we're doing at the Passive House Accelerator is it's an opportunity to kind of take in insights from experts and presentations and interviews and things. The collective is where you go to get into the real work with other peers who are on the same path or who have been down the path before you. So it's if the accelerator is about advancing the movement, the collective is about advancing your practice as kind of part of the movement. And so in terms of what's happening in the accelerator, this Friday, we have an Ask Me Anything Friday session with Ed May, who many people, I think, know Ed. He's an incredible practitioner who's has consulted on many of the most important projects in the US and beyond. He's also a great educator and just wealth of information. So people in the collective will be going and attending and asking Ed about the problems they have on their own projects. And that's going to be really fun. And then on Tuesday, we have a really great event with an interview by Michael Ingui of Critica Carbonda as part of our Reimagined Design series. And so that'll be another opportunity for members to get to know Critica and her work. And so, yeah, lots of really great stuff going on there. We also have so please, if you haven't already considered joining the collective, we'd love to have you join us. We also have a public Reimagine Buildings conference that is coming up, and that's some big news for us. So this is the Reimagine Buildings Multifamily Conference. It's on March 12th. 4 hours of real projects and proven strategies you can use on your own multifamily work. And Kim Davis, our producer, has put together a really incredible lineup of speakers for that. So again, March 12th, and you can go to the Passive House Accelerator website to click on the link there and get a whole bunch more information about that. This week, speaking of Passive House Accelerator, we have our newest sponsor, Reservoir Homes, joining us on Wednesday for the Passive House Accelerator Live for a special component spotlight episode, and they'll be presenting Rethinking Domestic Hot Water and introducing Reservoir Home. So Reservoir Home is a high efficiency electric smart water heater that also functions as a thermal battery. And so it's really cool piece of technology and very well aligned with Passive House practice as well. So we're excited to hear about that and learn more about that from Reservoir Home. So again, you can go to the Passive House Accelerator website to learn more about that and join us this Wednesday.
Awesome. Lots of stuff happening. Great stuff, Zach. Yeah, head on over to the Accelerator website and also check out Reimagine Buildings. Thank you very much, Jay. Great to have you back on the pod, and we'll be back again next week on the Passive House Podcast.